Hi, this is Mary Kay. I'm going to be doing a Western Bluebird today. So what I've done is I got this picture off the internet and I cropped it. I ran it off on my computer so that it would fit this piece of paper. I have a piece of water-soluble graphite paper and I've traced the bird. I'm going to start with the bluebird and then do the bottom and the background last. So I'm going to start with French ultramarine blue on his blue feathers and start there. So what I'm going to do is just wet this a little bit because the feathers I want to be wet into wet. So I have a little bit of French ultra in my brush right now. It's actually not that far off from the color already, just like that. Because I want these feathers to be soft. So I'm putting a little bit of water, which has blue paint in it. This is going to be, those middle feathers are going to be burnt sienna. Coming around his little feet. Okay, so the way I want to paint these feathers is a little bit of wet into wet. So I just want this to sort of run and sort of bleed and looks soft like feathers. So you can see how when it's going the wet into wet, it blends into the water. And this is almost white, but it has that nice blue tint to it. Try not to get my head in the way of this as I'm painting. The wings are quite sharp, bright blue, so I will just put in a little bit more color. I put a little bit of cerulean into that. I'm going to add that cerulean up here. Oh, that's pretty, like that. The top of that wing. So I want this to look like a watercolor, which means I want blending. I don't want to make it look like it's a photograph, that I'm painting a photograph. I want it to look like it's a watercolor when I'm done. I'm going to put a little bit of this right here too, because there's a bit of a... See, I like how just the wet into wet makes it look like the feathers. Okay, I'm going to clean my brush. I'm going to go into straight burnt sienna now, and I'm going to do the same thing with the red part of the breast, or the brown part of the breast. I think this burnt sienna is just about the perfect color for that part of it. Okay, so again, I'm just wetting this one. Well, it's really kind of dirty water, really. Okay, now I'll go in with a little more paint. There's a shadow along the side of the body. And there's a little bit of brown up in here. And there's a little bit here. what I'm doing here is I'm just lifting with a thirsty brush because I want it a little bit lighter right there. And now I'm going to mix these two colors together, French ultramarine blue and burnt sienna, to make a very dark blue. And that's going to be the color of this feather of his tail. Going around, I think this looks like a metal post that's got copper on it and it's all been oxidized. And then there's some darks here where the legs come through the feathers. And there's a little bit of shadow down here. And there's a little bit of shadow underneath the beak. He's looking pretty fluffy right now. Okay, I'm going to take that same color. I'm just using this brush. This is my, I call it a pencil brush, a museum pencil brush. And I'm going to, when I look at the beak, I want part of the beak to be dark, black basically, and part to be almost white. So I want to leave my highlights. And that's what's going to make it really look like it's in the sunshine right there. I have to leave the highlights. And the eye is black, and it's the same two colors. I've only used two colors so far, French ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. And now I am just very carefully painting in the eye. The thing about every eye is that there has to be a highlight. There has to be a glint. So I am going to very carefully leave a glint in this eye. Okey-doke. And same thing with the legs, really, the black and the highlights in these legs. This back leg here is in the shadow. The foot isn't, but this back leg is. So I'm not going to put any highlights on that. And now I'm just going to switch up my color a little bit and go back into more of the brown. So burnt sienna, and paint these little feet. Maybe a little bit more burnt sienna into that. So I've only used two colors and one brush this whole time so far. I love how the one toenail comes over here and this one curves up. And then these other, there's darkness on it and there's bumps. So I want to try to get that feeling. There's shadow at the bottom of these feet where the bumps are. So I'm trying to put that in. And there's also some more brown up here in the beak and around the beak. But I want to leave highlights, so I don't want it to be all that color. There is an eyelid around this black eye that I painted blue and didn't really leave light, so I've got to kind of wipe it out now. So this is a thirsty brush. I got it wet, it's clean, and then I wipe it off with my paper towel. And if I just go in to the paint, I'm going to do it again and rinse it off, dry it, so I have a thirsty brush, and then I can just lift up that eyelid. Just like that, comes right up. Nice. I feel like that needs to be round, but I'll go back in for that later. So this is basically the bird. It needs a couple darks in it, but I'm gonna wait till we're done and go back in and put a few darks in the wing and fix the eye a little bit. Right now I'm gonna go to this piece of metal. I'm switching my blue. I'm gonna go to Antwerp blue now. I'm going to be using Antwerp blue and burnt sienna, and it's going to make that green color. Now here I have to decide if I want to wet it or just paint with light color. I'm going to paint with a light color. So I'm painting the green part. I'm going to leave where it's brown. I'm going to leave that white. Goes out my page. So this is dilute, very dilute paint. Now I'm going to go into pure burnt sienna, wipe up my palette a bit. So far I've used only 3 colors for this whole painting so far. Okay, so this is burnt sienna, which is this, I guess it's rust. And there's highlights and shadows on this rust. That's all kind of the same color. So we need to go in with some different colors. I'm going to go in with the French ultramarine blue now and a little bit of cerulean into this metal post. And I'm darkening the side, because I would need that to look like it's the shadow side. And then these little bumps will have little shadows on them. I feel like it needs you know, I'm gonna wait again. I'm gonna wait till this is all dry to put in some detail into this. What I'm gonna do now is I'm going to paint the background. I'm gonna wet the background. There's a little bit of, looks like burnt sienna in my brush. I'm not quite going up to the bird. I'll be very careful in those spots right there. So the background is this dark green that I made and a yellow green. The yellow green will be my yellow, this yellow that I've been using with Antwerp. and that dark green, which is Antwerp and burnt sienna. So I'm going to make a couple puddles of both of those. So that's yellow. Bring my brush out and add the Antwerp. There's that bright green. And then Antwerp and burnt sienna. I'm making that beautiful dark green that I love. This is my favorite green. Well, I love all the greens. I love Antwerp blue. Okay, so what I'm going to do, since this is loaded in my brush, I'm going to go in and my paper, I'm still using that Kilimanjaro paper. That's why it's rolling up like this. Maybe I'll use that to my advantage. Because it will bleed out to the edges. Going around my bird. Very dark in here. It's my head getting in the way. I've noticed I've been doing that. Unfortunately, that bled into my I'm a little shaky. I don't know why I'm a little nervous. Maybe it'll make the painting better. Sometimes when I'm painting trees, if I'm a little nervous, I get better trees. Fake. Oh. I want to go around that right there. Okay. And then I have to have that same color on this side. Down here. I want to go around this so I have a little white highlight on that tail. And over here. Go back to this brush. Painting the corner. This up here, nice and dark. I'm gonna make a little bit more of this paint. And go in here nice and dark again. There's a little more blue in this. I think that looks good. I'm going to fill the rest in with the lighter green and see how it looks. I just want a very soft, blurry background that just covers the paper. Let's see how this looks in here. have these lighter areas. I usually don't like the bottoms to be, the corners to be lighter, but it looks nice in this picture, I think. So I'm going to try it. It's always good to see why you kind of make the rules the way they do. And then if you're like, oh yeah, no, that should be darker, we can go back and darken it. Now I'm just sort of blending it and messing this background up so it's more blurry. I think it's a great time to sign my name. I think I'll sign it. I think I will sign it sideways into this green part right here. Up a little farther so I can mat it. I need to sharpen my signer. And the paint went right into that, although I guess I'll just add a little bit more paint so you can see my name better. Okay, now what I'm going to do for the finishing touches is just go back in and put a few more details with the dark paint. So I'm going to make some more. I mean, I've gone to a very small brush right now. This is number 2, around number 2. This is burnt sienna and French ultramarine blue. I was trying to kind of get a nice black out of this. I'm going to go in and I'm going to redo the eye. So it's really dark. I'm trying to keep my funny hair out of the video. Got to keep the highlight though. Trying to make a round eye. And I want to put a few more darks in the beak, just little lines. And more little lines in the wings. So they're very making this tail in the shadowed tail, a little bit darker so that pipe sticks up more, right? Especially right here. A few more darks in the feet. Especially right at the bottom of the feet. Look at me shake. I've told the story many times of a painter when I was taking with Evelyn who had a stroke. She had to paint with her left hand. She was right-handed. And I thought she painted a lot better. Okay, I think it needs a little more shadow in this area, right in these feathers here. So I'm going to kind of do some dry brush work over the top of this, just to try to get that shadow feel there in the feathers. I'm going to get some French ultramarine blue and some cerulean and try to do the same here. And here, just trying to get this to look like it's in the shadow and that I have feathers. There's highlights and some darks. I'm gonna soften those two lines. Okay. There's just a couple little darks areas here. Trying to just make it look like this is on the shadowed side of the bird. And he does have that little extra blue right above his eye, so I want to get that extra blue there. And around his eye, I see a little bit of burnt sienna, very pale in here. I don't want to go over that eyelid. I want that eyelid to be light. Okay, I'm going to add another bit of the dark brown in here to try to make him look like he is. This side of him is more in shadow than the left side. And I think the bird is done enough to stop. I think it's better to leave it before you overwork it. Down here, I need to put in some more, I think more green. It's more light green, make it look more coppery. And this side, well, it is kind of an old pipe that's not too perfectly straight, so I guess that's all right. Maybe I will make some, put some cerulean into this too. I think that's better. So I just want to paint it and get out. I'm going to soften this top. So maybe it looks like the metal has a little highlight on it. And then I want to go in and put some darks underneath the rust at the top, or the solder, whatever that is. I want it to be kind of dark greenish brown. So all those colors I just made, I'm going to mix together and see what happens here. So I'm going to put it, just trying to make the top of this stand out a little bit by putting in a little bit of darks at the base of this rusty top. And there can be some of this on some of these rusty parts over here too. Now, I'm going to just try to lift this little spot here and put the brown back in so it looks like the lid goes all the way across. Let's see if it works. It's always easier to get it right the first time than it is to try and fix something. Okay. I'm just gonna scratch this down so it looks sort of rusty. I think I'm done. Thanks for staying with me and watching.